Welcome back. Today I'm going to do a video outlining a day in the life of a baseball broadcaster. It's a question that I've been asked a lot since I first began my baseball broadcasting career back in 1994. And I want to share with you so you know exactly what a professional baseball broadcaster is doing on a daily basis. All right, so I'm going to frame this as a broadcaster in the minor leagues. That's what I was, and I'm going to tell you what a day in the life is like. So let's say it's a night game. And by the way, there's going to be a difference here if it's a day game or a night game. And there's also going to be a difference if it's home or on the road. But I'm just going to say it's a night game. And let's say the game is at 7:15. So a day in the life of a baseball broadcaster. Typically, I would wake up late, middle of the morning. And again, when I first started my career, I was a teenager. Can you believe that? And as I progressed, I was in my 20s. So that age range typically sleeps in a little bit longer based on circadian rhythms, not based on laziness, but it's also based on the lifestyle, which you'll see as I progress through this day, and you'll see why I was sleeping in a little bit late. But I would get up middle of the morning, and I would do some things around the house. I would get some exercise. I would catch up on the day's news. This was in the day, primarily before the internet at the time. It's a little bit different now because you can access so much more information at your fingertips. But that's basically what I would do from the time I would wake up. I would usually head to the ballpark to show up around 3 o'clock. Now you might be asking, Rick, why are you showing up at 3 o'clock when the game is not until 7:15? First thing I would do as a minor league broadcaster, and this is again for a home game, I'd show up at 3, walk up to the booth with a big suitcase with my equipment, and set it up. That would generally take 15, 20 minutes or so. Then I would head into the press box, see if there were any press notes. I would take those rosters of the opposing team, statistics, and I would put them up on the wall in the broadcast booth. So I'd have my scorebook, which I'll get to at length in a little bit. But I'd also have the stats, I'd have the rosters, and I would go through and I would highlight the important things. So I would take maybe an hour there in the booth going through the stats. Who's hot on the other team? What are some of the storylines? I would go through that, spend maybe an hour. Then I would grab something to write with, grab my recorder, head down to the field, because this is typically the time when batting practice is going on.
If you love this radio show, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to share, like, and leave reviews. Your friends will thank you, and they'll think you're super cool.
And so I'd go down to the cage, the batting cage, and I would just hang out and talk to players, talk to coaches, talk to managers. I would get my tidbits. This is where you'd find out what players are talking about, what they think of the night's game, anything that was important to the storyline. It's almost like a soap opera broadcasting for a baseball team on a daily basis because the storylines change, the storyline evolves throughout a game, a week, a season. And as that storyline changes, you want to be up to date on what's happening. Maybe a new player joins the team. Maybe someone got promoted to the next level, and so they're no longer on the team. Maybe there has been an injury. Maybe someone is hot and the batting lineup has been changed. So this is when you find those things out when you're around the batting cage. And that's typically what I would do for maybe an hour. At that point, the team finishes up their time in the batting cage and they would head to the clubhouse for time before the game. And that is usually when I would do my pregame interviews. So I'd go down and maybe grab a player for a pregame interview and tape up a 5 or 10 minute interview. And then I'd grab the manager for the manager's report and tape a 5 or 7 minute interview with the manager, talking about maybe what's going on with the team, and then obviously a lot of focus on that night's game, talking about the pitching matchup or anything in specific with the team. So I'd spend time doing that. Then I'd take those interviews, head back up to the booth, and that's when I would make my final preparations. I would make sure everything was in place. I'd check those interviews, make sure the quality is right. get them edited and all set to go to play on the pregame show. And this is typically my favorite time of the day as a broadcaster, roughly around 6 p.m. when the gates would open. Because at that point, the team was in the clubhouse doing their final preparations for the ball game. I had already conducted my interviews. I had gathered a lot of tidbits by talking to players and managers and coaches, gathering all the information around the batting cage. My equipment was set. My stats were set. I was focused. Then the gates opened. So I had roughly an hour before I had to go on the air. And that was my relaxed time. Fans would filter into the ballpark. Some of them would come up and say hello to me, friends, family. They would come up to the booth, say hi. This is typically the time when I would have a chance to chat with the opposing team's broadcasters, just to exchange pleasantries and also to gather more tidbits. What else can they tell me about their team to help my broadcast? What can I tell them about our team to help their broadcast? So this is particularly that time. And then there were a couple very important things that I would do in this hour window from 6 till about 7. That's where I would go to the press room and get some food because I like to eat and I like to be full and satisfied before a game. Nobody needs to broadcast a 3-hour game on an empty stomach. Not wise. So I would go in, get something to eat. Wasn't always the healthiest option, but that's what I would do. Usually they provide food for the media. Sometimes it's just hot dogs, depending on where you are. And then other teams provide with great spreads of Italian dinners and salads. And as you move up the ranks, the food usually gets better. In fact, one of the stops, I helped coordinate those media meals. We had a local deal with a pizza restaurant. So once or twice a week, they would have the big deliveries of pizza, which was always a favorite. And my waistline showed that fact over the course of the season. I gained a few pounds. So that's what I would do in that window. That was one important thing, food. And then the second very important thing, usually during this period, I was not drinking a lot. I didn't drink too much. And one of the last things I would do is use the facilities before going on the air. Now you might be chuckling a little bit, but this is just a nuts and bolts truth. If I was going to be on the air, especially if I was on the air alone, I had to be cognizant that I needed to be able to sustain myself for the amount of that broadcast. I couldn't go and chug a bunch of drinks and then have to broadcast on the air for 3 hours because the commercials usually were not long enough for me to head to the restroom and get back. Usually at some of these minor league parks, it would take you 5 or 10 minutes just to get to the restroom and then wait in line and who knows. So I didn't drink a lot before the games. So that was my favorite time, between 6 and the start of the game. Usually, let's say 7 o'clock, the pregame show would start. I'd welcome my audience into the ballpark on the radio, and then the play-by-play would start with the first pitch at 7:15. I'd obviously broadcast the game, and then the evening part of my schedule began, and I'll tell you about that in just a sec.
When you're done with this episode, or even if you want to open your browser now, you can go deeper and learn the secrets of sports broadcasting. Search our full list of books at sportscastersclub.com, available from Amazon and Kindle, paperback, and Audible format.
So I've already gone through the first half of my day, and then I broadcast the game. Game ends, and now the evening portion of my preparation begins. So what that would entail, generally, on a non-specific day, I would pack up the equipment, get it all together, leave the park. By the time I got home, it was 10, 11 o'clock. And that's when I would typically spend most of my time preparing for the next day. I would pull out my scorebook. The best one I ever used for years was the Bob Carpenter scorebook because it had so much room to fill in extra information and tidbits. So I would fill out as much of the info as I knew. I didn't know the lineup for the next day, but a lot of the statistics, the streaks, the team records, all of that information I knew that night. And so I could fill it in. And then there were sections for free written tidbits and information. So maybe for me it was Jorge Cantu has a 10-game hitting streak in which he's 40 for 79. And I would do tidbits like this. Josh Hamilton has now homered in 3 straight games. The team has won 5 of their last 6 games on Saturdays, or whatever it is. But I would have so much information in all the margins, in all the areas where I could write. So I had so much info. My goal was to use 10 or 20% of it during the broadcast. I wanted to have more than enough. So if I had a 9-1 blowout, I would not run out of things to talk about. So then, I mentioned that early part of the day when I was catching up on the news. A lot of times I would watch the news, and if I saw stories that I thought might be pertinent or something interesting for my audience that night, I would jot them down and leave them as part of my tidbits. For example, I'd watch CNN headline news. This is back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'd be, let's say I'm in a hotel room or something. I'd put on headline news, and maybe there was a big drought happening in the middle in Iowa. And let's say I said, you know what, that might work its way into the broadcast somehow. I jot it down into my scorebook. And let's say in the middle of the game, the opposing team brings in a pitcher from Iowa. Well, there's an interesting and perfect connection after introducing the pitcher. I can work in the fact that maybe his thoughts are with his family back home because they're dealing with a major drought in Iowa that's lasted a couple weeks, and it's been a tough situation. And so who knows if his mind is elsewhere when he's on the mound. Those kind of tidbits that can flavor a broadcast, the preparation never stops. All day long is preparation. So I get home from the game. The point I'm trying to make is that that's the period I would spend the most focused time on preparing for the next day. And I would get that scorebook all ready. So when I laid my head on the pillow after some milk and cookies, I knew that I was all set and prepared for the next day's game. And then I'd wake up, do it all again. So when you think about it, how much did I work in a day for that game? Well, if I showed up at 3 at the park, left at 10, 11, that's 8 hours, right? That's 8 hours, plus a couple at home at night, little in the morning. So it's like 8 to 10 hours, maybe more, preparing for each game. And what the listener or the viewer hears is the 3 hours you're on the air. But there's just a lot more that goes into it, from the preparation at night, preparation in the day, and then the preparation at the ballpark. So that's a typical day in the life. On the road, it would be a little different because you'd be in the hotel. I found that was even a little bit more convenient and easy to focus because I didn't have any other real life things. There was no laundry to do. There were no household chores. There were no other distractions to take you away from the baseball preparations. Sometimes you'd want a distraction. So for example, if the team had a night game, maybe we'd catch a movie middle of the day. I did that with players or broadcast partners over the years, where we'd catch a matinee movie before heading to the ballpark, depending on what time. Day games changed everything a lot, because let's say you get home at 10 or 11 from a game, and then you have a day game the next day at 1. Maybe you're showing up to the park at 10 a.m. Oftentimes the manager would say, no batting practice. We're going to bang batting practice that day. And so you just show up, strap it on, and go. So the time was condensed. I'd still have to get there, conduct my interviews, prepare the broadcast booth, the stats, all of that, the equipment. But I wouldn't have the opportunity to go down to the batting cage and hobnob with the players and coaches during batting practice, because there wouldn't be any. So that would just condense some of that time if there was a day game. And obviously, if there was a road trip, oftentimes we would leave right after the game. So we would play a game and oftentimes get right on the bus and head to the next city. So that would change it up a little bit. But hopefully I've given you an idea of a typical day in a baseball broadcaster's life, whether it's at home or on the road, whether it's a night game or a day game. And the real point that I wanted to make with this is that it's a lot more than just those 3 hours that you see the broadcaster or hear the broadcaster. They've been working 8, 10, 12 hours total. They've been working many hours to prepare for that 3. And I can tell you as a broadcaster who started young, when I didn't devote that time, that preparation time, I felt it. I felt it on the broadcast. I didn't feel as sharp. I didn't feel as confident. And it came through because maybe I just didn't feel as prepared. It's like anything in life. And ironically, I'm now well over 30 years since my first professional baseball broadcast, and I still have a recurring nightmare where I wake up because I'm in a dream. My nightmare is all of a sudden the light goes on and I'm broadcasting a game and I don't know the teams. I don't know the players. They're not written in my scorebook. I don't have stats. I don't have rosters. I don't have interviews done. I haven't prepared. Honestly, that's a nightmare that I have frequently, probably once every month or two. For years, I've had this nightmare. And I know it's because of my early days as a baseball broadcaster. So I think that's a positive because you want to have that fear of not being prepared. And you want to have that as something that's pushing you to be so over prepared. You've got more information than you'll ever need. You're there early with plenty of buffer. You're not rushing. You're not racing around unprepared, shirt flying everywhere. Don't know what you're doing. Don't know which end is up. You want to prepare, have your food, use the restroom, be calm and relaxed because your viewer and your listener is going to be able to tell and they're going to appreciate it. So I hope you're subscribed here to the channel for much more information about sports broadcasting, what goes into it. And my name is Rick if we haven't met before. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, so long.